Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for the month of March. Uri Gutfreund, our co-moderator, with us. Uri, how are you?
I am well, John. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Enjoyed being with you in New York last week. We put on some good programming. We'll reference some of it. And we also want to introduce Daina Borteck, who is an in-house counsel. She'll introduce herself a little bit later. But Daina was with us last week, and we had a couple of panels of in-house counsel talking about their expectations around artificial intelligence and how that's going. Welcome, Daina.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And where sit you this afternoon, my dear?
I am in northern New Jersey, so East Coast, and a little chilly, but we're hanging in. At some point, spring is going to get here.
Hey, it's even cold down here in South Florida. We plummeted into the 60s last night. I mean, people were dressed up. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm
Nicole, your
okay.
timing is impeccable. We're just about to start. We're doing a little
Okay.
pre-show banter and
Okay.
saying hello to everyone. Nicole, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing well.
And where
It's
are
also cold where
you
I am.
this where
I'm in New Jersey.
where do you sit this afternoon, Nicole?
I'm in New Jersey today.
Excellent. We got a bunch of New Jersey. Israel's Uri's with us, sitting over there in Israel. I'm down in South Florida, and we are about to press the go button on this program. So welcome everybody. We are glad you're here. Welcome Daina. Welcome Nicole. Should be a very lively, fun conversation, interactive. We have lots of polling data we want to share with everyone, and so let's get started. So welcome. This is our formal beginning to our March program. This is number 67 of our series that Uri Gutfreund and I have been presenting since COVID hit us, and we had nothing better to do. And today we've invited some in-house counsel to come talk to us about artificial intelligence and how that's factoring into the practice of law from their perspective. And Uri will and I will be co-hosting, and we'll introduce our panel very shortly, Daina and Nicole. So Uri, how you doing? What's going on in your world lately?
I am doing well. As you said earlier, I'm in Israel currently, so if I duck away for a few minutes, I'll come right back. But hopefully, no interruptions today.
Uri and I will be chatting away, and it's all of a sudden, the alarms start going off, and he has to head downstairs. So thanks for peeking out, Uri, and we certainly understand if there are any situations. I'm coming at you from South Florida, number 67 in our series. So welcome, everyone, and delighted to introduce our guest speakers this month. We have Nicole Bearce and Daina Borteck. Uri, why don't you, say hi to
Yeah,
Nicole and ask her to tell
I
us a little
sure
bit about
will.
what she does.
Yeah, sure. Nicole and Dana were with us at our New York program last week, and they were kind enough to do it then. Did such a good job. What do you do when somebody does a good job? You ask them to do it more. So, Nicole and Dana, thank you so much for being with us today. Nicole comes to us as Deputy General Counsel, Vice President at Conduent. Um, Thank you, Nicole, for being here. Maybe just give us a brief overview, and then we'll go to Dana. Brief overview, Nicole, what you do at the company, a little bit about the company, and your outside use of counsel, please.
Sure. So I wear a few different hats at Conduent. So I'm the Deputy GC, and I'm also the Chief Ethics and Privacy Officer. So under my remit, I'm responsible for our litigation, employment, and privacy functions, as well as our ethics office. Conduent is a global BPO provider, which is a business process service provider to commercial entities as well as government agencies. Essentially anything transaction intensive, we can support with technology, solutions, bespoke that are made for those organizations, staff augmentation, and that spans a number of industries, but the ones where we principally play are in healthcare, transportation, human resource, employee benefit spaces, and we do a lot of government benefit programs as well, Medicaid, Social Security, child support, those sorts of issues.
And Nicole, how many in-house lawyers and how many outside firms, ballpark, do you guys use?
Yeah,
In
globally
the
we
US?
have about 50 attorneys all in, the size of our department is probably double that once you add in our paralegals and analysts. And I would say in terms of outside counsel, if we looked at the complete roster, we don't use a preferred panel approach. So our attorneys essentially partner with those firms that are selected based on what they bring to a particular engagement. So we probably have about 100 different firms across the department as a result of that approach.
Wow, and you
Okay.
guys are a New York-based entity, Nicole, or where are you headquartered?
Well, we're headquartered in New Jersey, though you are right, we are incorporated in New York, but we're in Morris County in Florham Park, New Jersey. And we have sort of critical centers, I would say, of associates in the countries where we have most of our associates are in India, Guatemala, Jamaica, Puerto Rico.
Interesting. Hey, Daina, we're going to kind of ask you to introduce yourself as well. Tell us a little bit about what you do, your company, and in context, your in-house legal department and what you're farming out to outside counsel.
Okay, thank you. So I am Daina Borteck. I'm the Deputy General Counsel at Kyowa Kirin, Inc. We are the North America region of Kyowa Kirin, which is a global specialty pharmaceutical organization. We have operations across the US and Canada that that I work on, but we also cover international markets. Our headquarters are based in Tokyo, Japan. And we also have a large presence in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. For those of you who recognize the name Kirin, it is actually the same as the Kirin beer.
That's a
Ichiban.
beer. I
Yes.
recognize that, yeah.
So a lot of times people maybe haven't heard of Kyowa Kirin, but you've probably heard of Kirin beer. So that is our parent company, Kirin Holdings.
So your company sells drugs and alcohol.
It's true. Yes. Yes. Along with lots of other things in Japan. Yes. We are actually we're the specialty pharmaceutical organization where we specialize in rare disease and oncology and cell and gene therapy. So in my role, I provide legal support to the North American entities, but I also partner with our international affiliates, and particularly in Japan. I supervise a team of legal staff and attorneys. We have in our North American legal team about, I'd say, 20 people, and 12 are attorneys and the rest are paralegals. We have a few specialized attorneys and some generalists. And I do support for, I would say, almost all of the issues except the marketing side of the business. So I don't do the promotions and marketing, but I do all of the operations side, trade, government affairs, manufacturing, supply chain, ESG, real estate, things like that. And I'm also responsible for the overall contracting process for North America. And the team underneath me manages the contracts for all of North America.
Well, as Uri and I picked Nicole and Daina because we like them the best of the panels we assembled last week. We decided who should we invite to be on the webinar, and Uri agreed almost instantly. Daina and Nicole, they were great.
John, they're already here. They're already here.
Last week. I know, and I hope the ones we didn't invite just, somehow don't hear about us. But no, we're delighted y'all have done this for us. The conversations were great yesterday. So we thought we'd bring them to this more national audience. And Daina's going to share, I hope, a really interesting story about opportunities for smaller and mid-sized law firms to gain significant work from big international corporations. And it's just not big law. And we definitely want you to share that story, Dana, you shared with us last week. Before we jump in, our shameless plugs, we do these webinars every Wednesday, and I don't think we've missed a beat, or maybe we missed one since the beginning. And we're recorded. We'll share the recordings. They're all archived on our website. My colleague, Tony DeSimone out of Buffalo, New York, have launched a community of managing partners, specifically on AI and its integration to the practice. And so we're doing some webinars and some programming around that because we're all trying to figure this out. If someone tells you they have all the answers, I don't think they may be honest with you. Our big event, our showcase is in Atlanta. We sold out last week with early registration, so we're excited about that. We were doing a fall program in Chicago for women in law firm leadership, by women, for women. And this will be the third year. We keep amping up and more folks come. So we'll be announcing the dates and agenda for that program shortly. A couple other things we do, trying to help law firm leaders be more effective in a very challenging role. This is our conference coming up in Atlanta. And as you can see, we're talking about AI, not all AI, but it's a hard topic to avoid in this day and age. Uri, set us up for today and let's get started.
Yeah, so today's program, as John said, number 67 in our list. We have 70 managing partners with us today. As John said, the results from our real-time polling that we do today, as well as the polls at registration, will come out to you, as well as the recording. We'll send that out to you with our handout packet. At the end of today's program, I think everyone here knows the drill. You're going to close the window, little feedback. It's going to pop up. Just answer. We ask you 3 short questions. Please help us. We help you. So please help us help you, which is, what did you like best? What did you like least? And what would you like to see as a future topic? So we look forward to today's program. And lastly, if you have any questions or comments you want to get in to the program, the questions tab is open there. I will look over to that occasionally and try and ask our distinguished panelists, or if you have a question for me or John, put it in the question as well, and I will bring it to the group as we go through today's program. John, start us off.
Excellent. Thank you for our setup, Uri. Folks love the banter, the pace, and the data we deliver through these programs. So let's get started with some data. And this is our first of several live polling questions. Let me see if I remember how to work this. Polls. And this mostly for Dana and Nicole to give you a sense of the firm sizes with us today. And we tend to draw smaller, mid-sized firms, as we did New York, New Jersey. And I, having lived in Atlanta for many years, like to chide the audience that I know how to count and recount. And we'll come take the boxes away if we need to, send the FBI in. But here are our firm sizes today in that smaller, what we call smaller and mid-size range. And so I think with change comes opportunity, and it's out there, folks, but you got to take advantage of the opportunities that are presenting itself today. We asked if your firms have adopted policy regarding the use of generative AI on legal matters. And Dana, I'll invite you and Nicole, your comments on this. Are you advising your outside counsel to put policy around how lawyers and support staff at these firms use generative AI tools? And Dana, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I would say that we expect it, and we certainly expect that it is going to be something that is raised with us, that there are guidelines and boundaries put on any use of AI before any use of AI happens under our matters. And whether or not that exists at this point with all of the firms is still to be determined. I don't know that, I'm not surprised that 19% said no.
Dana, I'll be surprised and say I'm surprised 58% said yes with oversight. The key is oversight because we can promulgate all sorts of policies and rules without any oversight. That might be risky behavior. Nicole, what say you about policy? Are you asking about it to your outside counsel? Are you expecting to see it?
Yeah, I would say we haven't adopted anything formally, and it is a subject that is in active conversations every day right now. It's come up in specific cases where our outside counsel want to use it or frankly have decided to use it. And then we had a conversation. I shared this in our preparation for this panel. I actually had a pretty sizable matter where outside counsel engaged an e-discovery team that they have already in-house with that firm, but hadn't actually brought it to my attention before starting to bill for it. And I saw time entries in the invoices. So that prompted a conversation. And I would say I do agree with what Dana said, to proactively raise it with your in-house counterparts would be the best way to approach it, because I think there may be assumptions, frankly, on both sides of that conversation about what's available, what the cost is, what the efficiency is. Is it really better than the old-fashioned way of manual review? That may also depend on kind of the demographics of who's in the room and at the table. And I do think there can be perhaps some skepticism about whether the cost benefit is worthwhile. But then for others, that may seem obvious. So I think rather than making an assumption, rather than just moving out with an approach, I think encouraging open dialogue, just to be sure everyone's on the same page. And I think if you can make the business case that it is not only more cost effective, but will actually accelerate and improve the outcomes of what, as an example, let's say the discovery review or of a production that needs to be made to a regulator, just as examples. If you can actually say that the outcomes of what's ultimately tagged as responsive or what's going to help you tell your story, then I think that's what's compelling.
Certainly, we see movement toward more policy, more training. Uri, do you believe
Absolutely.
that 60% of our registrants have policy with oversight in place, or are they giving us a false positive here?
Well, my perspective is that the near 60% is way too low. You know, this is technology, so people sometimes forgive that we're not all using the technology at the firm. But if you think about it, go back to say 20 years when we had the law books, we would never have said it's okay if one of the partners said, you know what, the firm's using those books. I got my own books for some guy in Vermont, and he sends me these books each month, and that's where I get my stuff from. You would never tolerate that as a firm. And this is that times 100. You know, there clearly are technologies that don't work, right? I mean, it's virtually every day there's another firm that just gets tagged for misciting, you know, just a misciting. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So the fact that 42% of you said that either you don't
I agree.
have
I think,
or you have little oversight, I think that's terrible. I mean,
yeah.
I think that's terrible.
I think everyone should have policy with some oversight. Just to make sure your lawyers are doing the right things. And I made a flippant comment one of the panels. I said, yeah, this AI can do it better, faster, cheaper than a second-year associate. And one of the panelists paused me and said, I'll give you faster and cheaper. I don't know if it's better in terms of the quality of the research and any potential violation of confidentiality, due to a misprompting. But we're certainly advocating policy. A couple of you asked, how do we get that started? And I think ChatGPT is a good place to start. Give me a policy for a mid-sized commercial law firm in Connecticut that represents banks, real estate developers, and healthcare entities. A page or less, please. That's not a bad first draft. But a policy, making sure people are aware of it, signed off on it. We've seen a lot of our firms already sign. They generate a policy, have people sign that they'll agree to abide by the policy. But mandates and edicts are tough to enforce sometimes in the law firm environment. Here's the question around training. Diane, Nicole, you're expecting your outside counsel to be trained up on the use of these tools, their firms to be providing a little training for the people working on your matters. And let's start with you, Nicole, on that one.
I mean, absolutely. I think the expectation is certainly if they're going to be using it anywhere near one of our matters, there needs to be training so that, again, not making an assumption that anyone is just intuitively going to be able to handle these tools. And also because of the confidentiality concerns and making sure that the appropriate guardrails are in place. I think the first questions that most of the in-house professionals that I'm interacting with are asking are you using the information from our matters to train your tool? Is that information being disclosed in such a way where it could potentially be utilized outside of our organization? Understanding how prompts are framed. I think all of those things touch on training and ensuring that those individuals, whatever their role is, if they're going to be touching your matter and touching the information relating to your organization and using these tools, you want to be sure that they know what they're doing and frankly what they should not be doing.
Yeah, right. And excuse me, Dana, I mispronounced your name, and Uri's reminding me in the private chat. It's Dana, not Diana.
It's Dana with an
And
I. Yes, thank
Dana
you.
with an I, and as we talked about last week, I'm sure nobody ever makes the mistake that it's Dana, not Diana. But forgive me if I make that unforced error. I certainly don't intend to.
I
Here's the
understand.
training. Here's the training question. Only 1 in 29% mandating the training, and a remarkable 35%, I guess, are expecting people to self-teach themselves or go learn how to use these tools somewhere else. Uh, Uri, as an insurer, a risk manager type, doesn't that create a little risk if we're allowing those things to happen in the firm?
Yeah, well, I already worry much that they're using tools, without any policy here. They're not even taught how to use them. It's silly. And by the way, they probably will be better at their job too if you train them. Forget making mistakes. They'll be better at it.
Yeah.
Seems like it's
Yeah,
well worth
and
it.
bring it down to your support staff, everybody in the place, I think. Not just lawyers, So often we teach the lawyers how to do stuff. We forget we have support staff. Are your clients starting to come and talk to you about these matters? Here's what our audience says here. More and more frequently, half say occasionally. We didn't define what that was. Dana, are your outside counsel coming to you proactively to have conversations around this, or do you have to go find them and kind of initiate the conversations?
Yeah, I would say they are not coming to us proactively, which is a bit frustrating. We have some new engagements that we are undertaking. And what was interesting was, I think about a month ago, we got a new engagement letter from a mid-size firm, and it had a basic AI provision that was likely drafted with AI and said very little. It basically just said, we're going to use AI and you consent to that. And while maybe in-house counsel would just sign on the line, we pushed back hard because we're not willing to just sign something like that. And we actually did some pretty significant red lines that we sent back to try to put some guardrails around the use of AI. And it's not to say that we don't want it. In fact, we very much want it in a way that is safe, confidential, compliant. And also, if it's going to be used for cost saving, we want to see the cost saving. We want to be able to know that there's going to be some sort of benefit to us from the use of it. So, for example, some of the things that we put into this red line was we are not comfortable with a firm using any of our information or data to train their models. And that, I think, is something that firms really need to be thinking about, because you will want to be able to train your model, but I can imagine that an in-house team who doesn't affirmatively tell you not to, but then finds out that you used it is not going to be happy to find that out. So I would be thinking about that stuff before you start using people's data. I will say that this firm accepted our changes whole cloth and signed on the dotted line without pushing back on our red lines, which I was very happy to see. And I know that as a team, we are now going to be going back to the firms we're using and try to start at least addressing this issue with them. But my last point I will make to everybody on the call is we are generally stretched very thin. And there's a reason we're reaching out to outside counsel, and it's usually because we're drinking from a fire hose and we need help. And so if there is a major issue happening, something like going and discussing the engagement letter that was signed 3 years ago to talk about AI hits the back burner. But that's not to say that it isn't front of mind and really important to us. And in a way, I think it will be doing your clients a huge favor by being the one who brings it to them and brings it to them in a way that makes their life easier, as opposed to what I'm probably going to have to do with my team, which is to say, we're going to have to prioritize this and it's going to take away time from really like serious work we're doing. And we'd all feel better if our firms were coming to us to do it.
Boy. Nicole, what's your experience outside counsel coming to you to discuss the application of AI to their matters?
Yeah, I would agree with almost every single thing that Daina said. It's not something that's come up proactively, but I really do echo everything that she said. It doesn't indicate that it's not important to us. It's just that we're juggling a lot of different things. So I think to the extent that firms can raise the issue and show us the benefits and the insights that the tools can bring. So not just mention the tools for the sake of, trying to appear like we've got access to these tools and that in and of itself is a differentiator. I think the firms bringing it up proactively and specifically showing it can, complete this document review in this less amount of time. It's going to save you this number of dollars on your budget. This is going to allow us to set up an alternative fee arrangement for a flat fee for this phase of the case because we know we're going to be able to lean into this tool is one example. Another example that I've thought about, and I haven't seen a firm do this, and it feels to me like a missed opportunity, that with the access to AI tools, one of the sort of nice to haves that is very difficult to find time for in the day is knowing what's coming down the road. And with so many changes that happen on a daily basis, being able to spot trends and ongoing developments it's just a very difficult thing to do. And typically in-house folks, just like Daina said, like we're juggling so many things, we're so leanly resourced that we sort of do that to the extent we can even do it after hours or when we can fit it in. And so to the extent that firms can lean on these tools, obviously validate the information, because we certainly don't want to be fed information that's incorrect, but to the extent that these tools can accelerate the ability to show us those kinds of trends or those kinds of developments, to me that feels like that's an opportunity right there that could really help a firm stand out.
A value add. And so what do I want to present? A podcast to you, our e-newsletter, pick up the phone and arrange a meeting with your team? What's the best way for me to initiate that conversation and demonstrate kind of that we're on top of it?
I mean, I think, again, I'm going to lean on what Daina said, in a way that makes our lives easier. So whatever way that is. So if an in-house person likes to listen to a podcast, send them a link to your podcast. If they've got a few minutes just to get on a phone call and you can download something like quickly and in an informed way, deliver it to them that way. I said in one of our conversations last week, the reason why in-house counsel hire outside counsel is because we trust you and we rely on your judgment and we feel confident relying on your judgment. These tools don't change that. These tools amplify that, but you need to show us why we should trust you and why we can lean on your judgment while you're using these tools. So it will sound self-centered because it is, but I do think if you can make your in-house client's life easier and find a way to deliver that information to them in a way that fits into their very congested schedule, that is how you're going to earn like that, that stickiness in that relationship.
And as you suggest, no two clients are alike as to how they'd
No.
like to be presented information. Some like to read, some like to hear, some like to, take it in different ways. And I think law firms take a very monolithic approach to how they communicate to clients, and should be more bespoke, I think, in terms of certainly our page one clients. Daina, anything you want to add before we move along?
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to pick up on something you mentioned just a few minutes ago, which is to utilize the non-lawyers on the team as well. So as you might recall, last week in New York, I had my legal operations manager attend because he's actually the one who's managing these engagement letters and frankly understands the technology much better than pretty much every lawyer on our team. So
he's a non-attorney. He's an MBA type.
He's a paralegal also with some business and that in the background. But I would bet you each in-house team has somebody different. You might have an IT support person who's helping. You might have a legal ops person. But I would venture to ask the lawyer you're working with, is there somebody who's kind of supporting you from a more not just technological perspective, but an understanding of how this is going to work day to day for you? Because those are the people who can almost translate for the attorneys in ways that I think will end up being really huge value adds for both sides, for the law firm and the in-house team.
We talked about CLOC, Commercial Legal Operations Consortium. That's a group that's really steamrolling and looking at pricing, and these are groups, people embedded with in-house legal departments who are looking at the spend and how we're going to rein it in and budget and bring some predictability. And so this is a segue, and then Uri's going to lead us through a couple of more slides. And we touched on these things last week, which is sort of the total spend on services as you balance in-house, what you send out, how AI might influence this. And so Daina, how's your company looking at its spend total and its balance between in and outsourced services?
Yes. So I mentioned this when we were having our pre-meeting that I think my experience is going to be a little bit different than Nicole's. So we are a very case by case, it depends kind of answer. And part of that is we have the good fortune of having a very, very minimal litigation or document review workload. So some of the areas where I think AI might be exponentially helpful, we're just not seeing as one of our areas of need. So in a way, right now, it's really becoming a case by case, almost topic by topic conversation. And because of that, the answer is kind of, it depends. And the other thing I will say is that because of that as well, we don't really have a great, or I would say a specific way we are managing legal spend and fees. So the flat fee maybe fits a couple things we're doing, but I would say we're really focused still on the traditional hourly rate, hourly fee type work. And that's why it's important for firms to show us if there's savings. How are we going to see that? Because it's pretty hard to see that if it's an hourly rate when it's showing us something that doesn't exist, right? The hours aren't there, so how would we know they're not there? So that would be one area that communication will be really important.
Daina, your balance of spending in-house, I believe, is it you who share? You have a freezing hire in your in-house legal department, and so
we do not. Actually.
Or is that you, Daina?
That was me.
So Daina can't hire any more in-house lawyers or support staff, right? So
Nicole,
you're forced to go out. Is that right?
Nicole, Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that was
Nicole.
my
That was
comment.
Nicole. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we need to seek an exception for bringing in any additional lawyers into our team. So I would say the scrutiny on spend has always been there, of course. I do think it's as heightened as it has ever been. And just as a general comment in terms of how we manage our legal spend, yeah, I meet with our general counsel every month, and we look at the spend that we have incurred across each of our firms. For our smaller matters, we will bucket those areas, and we may not necessarily delineate it on a firm by firm basis, but for firms certainly above a certain threshold, we're looking every single month at how much we are spending and what our anticipated trajectory of spend looks like. And we are constantly needing to justify in terms of the overall, financial outlook, how much we think we're going to be spending over the coming quarter, over the coming, the rest of the year, and then typically 12 months out. So it's an every week conversation at some level. And so I think to the extent that firms can show us that they are able to propose, we typically do have hourly arrangements as well, but we will do caps on certain engagements where we kind of know what, generally speaking, is entailed in a particular engagement. And if a firm can offer us a cap, we're more inclined to bring you in and then utilize your services for that engagement. And we're not looking in any way to treat our firms unfairly. It's basically an opportunity for us to say, look, this is a chance for us to potentially save some expense here and work with a firm. And then depending on that experience, that could lead to another opportunity. We have specific areas where we have more repetitive type claims that come in. And then we have other spaces where, they might be the more unusual putative class action type space. And I do think being able to demonstrate that using whatever the methodology is, whether it's AI or otherwise, to show us that you can give us predictability. And I know, John, you mentioned this, like predictability is key. Even if it's going to be a painful number, but you can tell me this is the number, that helps me because I can plan around it. The worst thing is candidly being given a number and then it's a different number. And if it comes in under, great. But if it comes in above, it's so painful. Both to justify it internally and to deal with the consequences, that is just the hardest of all scenarios.
I sat in on a firm retreat a couple of weeks ago, and the managing partner, little old school, we will not move off the billable hour because every time we do, we shortchange ourselves. If we're going flat fee, fixed fee, subscription based, we don't have a good handle on this. But you need to get a handle on the predictability piece, I think.
I think that's
important
right.
to the clients,
The other quick AFA that I'll mention that we have had success with is incorporating success fees. So even if we have a cap, if there's a particular outcome that we are looking for and we think it's not a more routine case, that it's an actual stretch potentially to get to that result, we have built in a success fee so that the firm tracks what the spend would have been if they had billed us in the traditional way, and will pay the differential with a little premium. Again, it kind of depends on what the outcome is, but we have done that in higher stakes cases so that we're in it together. And one of our firms actually has become a little superstitious with us because it's led to a couple of really good results and good outcomes for them. So they want to structure it in that way because it's one of these things like, we're on a little bit of a roll. So let's approach it in that way again.
I think, you win some, you lose some. Some matters you may shortchange yourself a little bit. You'll make it up on other matters.
That's right.
And but bringing that predictability on more routine, commoditized matters, I think. But those important protracted litigations are certainly hard to budget. Uri, you're up next for the next couple of slides.
So we wanted to ask the panel about how you go about selecting outside counsel. It sounds like from what we've heard about your expectations of outside counsel, your expectations are going to be great, whether they're using AI or not. They don't want to disappoint you, and you have certainly that expectation. But a new relationship, or even ongoing relationship. How do you go through that process? You know, the age-old question, is it lawyer or is it firm? Is it big? Is it small? Or case-by-case basis? Maybe Nicole and then Daina on that question. How do you go about selecting?
Yeah, so I would definitely say most cases it's the lawyer, it's not the firm. There are certain exceptions to that where we may have situations where we have insurance coverage at play, and so we may be looking at panel firms, and so then we're selecting from a culled down list of options. There may be higher stakes cases where, I've seen a scenario where a board member wants us to hire somebody from a firm that's got a specific name attached to it, but those are the exceptions. Most of the matters that we are hiring the lawyer. Lawyers move much more now than they used to from firm to firm. Even mid-engagement, when you're in the middle of a case, we will have lawyers that will move to a different firm. So I think the relationship with the specific lawyer who actually is shepherding that case, really cultivating that relationship, making sure that the firm and the team of lawyers is responsive to what needs to be addressed, to me is really key. And I said it before, so I'll say it again, it's trust and judgment, right? We want to know you've got the expertise, of course, but that's table stakes, right? So we're going to research and know that you as an individual lawyer have the credentials to handle a particular case, but there probably will be, in most scenarios, a few different lawyers that may be able to demonstrate that. So what's going to push it across the finish line is really demonstrating that we can trust you and trust the judgment that you're going to bring to that case.
Yep. And so
Daina,
not
you
firm.
got to tell your story, by the way. This is the segment where you tell your story.
Okay. Well, yes, I have two. So one is that I would say we have relationships with people, as Nicole said, with specific lawyers and also firms. And so if we have a good relationship with the firm, we might start there. Right? We might start with a firm that especially one of the big international top firms, because, they probably have the area of expertise. And this is one of the stories I shared, which was we have that relationship with a big firm. And one of the things I'm working on are things related to tariffs and trade, which, as everyone knows right now, is a ever-changing daily thing that we're dealing with. So we needed some specific support, and we went to one of the big firms, one of the main big firms we were working with, to talk to their expert. At the same time, we had a recommendation for a different firm, also I'd say medium to big international firm, and we had the call with that potential new firm, and it was really positive, supportive, open, inviting, gave us some free advice off, based on what they were hearing on the Hill and all those things. Then we got on the phone with the expert from the big firm that we have really a very good relationship with, that has been ongoing for years, and we are giving them a lot of business. And the expert couldn't have been more bored to talk to us, and was clearly just didn't want to be bothered. And it was a no-brainer to go with this new firm. This is where we're doing a new engagement letter, and we were willing to do that, even though we have a great relationship with the other firm, and we're going to continue working with the other firm, but not on this
partner, huh?
Definitely not that partner. And then the other piece, which was also in a similar vein, we are very excited that we are doing the first manufacturing facility outside of Japan in North Carolina. And when that was announced, there was a North Carolina-based firm that was doing some real direct reach outs through LinkedIn, through email, but very warm, very not inappropriate in any way, very nice, kind of consistent. If listen, we're experts in this area. We're local. If you have any questions, let us know. And we ended up having questions that our business people in North Carolina started saying to us, does this big big name international firm really understand North Carolina? And do they really understand pharmaceutical construction in this specific area of the Research Triangle? I mean, it was like the most specific. We don't think your big lawyers, your big, international lawyers understand this. And the general counsel and I reached out to the people from the North Carolina firm and said, hey, you've said if we have any questions, we could reach out. And they were so wonderful to talk to us for free and give us really good advice, and also confirm that the big firm knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to undercut and take business. And we were able to go to our business partners and say, yeah, we're okay here. But it was so wonderful that the general counsel and I both said, the minute we have work for this North Carolina firm, we're giving it to them. And it was not long thereafter that we had work. And now we have expanded to be giving them as much work as we possibly can, totally outside of the construction, North Carolina focused. We're actually transferring some of the work from the big firm over to the North Carolina firm because it's half the hourly rate, if not even better. And the quality and client support has been amazing.
Now, Daina, has the big firm figured this out yet? What you're doing, or are they asleep?
Well, it's not a secret. It's not a secret. So I wouldn't be. I don't think it's a secret, and I think that they have their business model, and it works for them the way that it works for them.
And this North Carolina firm was just cold calling you. They noticed you were building a plant, and they decided to just reach out, and I'm sure they were frustrated that they didn't get immediate responses to their first overtures, but they kept at it. And eventually.
Yeah, I don't know if they were frustrated. I actually think that they wanted to make sure that we were on their radar. And what was also great is that they really are experts in the area. And so the people that we were networking with business-wise knew of them. So they had legitimacy. It wasn't, they weren't ambulance chasers. They were legit North Carolina RDU pharma construction experts. So it just was almost like natural, and really I think we all feel great about the relationships we're building with them.
There's a lot of lessons there for smaller and mid-sized law firms, to go after it, and expertise by industry, by geography, and a lot of lessons there. Nicole, how do you guys shop for lawyers? You talked about relationships. You hire the lawyer. Do you go check out LinkedIn? Do you look at biographical profiles? Any of that stuff factor in?
Yeah, so I do use LinkedIn. In part, I'm active on that platform, just generally speaking, and so I have a pretty robust network there. So I will go on there and I will check and see if I have mutual connections. If I get the name of an attorney, by way of example, I'll just check and see if I know someone mutually and get maybe an offline read on whether or not they've worked with that individual or the firm before. I'll also do that internally. If I am recommended names, I'll check with my colleagues within the legal department, or I'm a member of the Association of Corporate Counsel, so I'll ask folks there. I do think networks and kind of referral sources, if you will, even if they're informal, are really vital and critical. So I think having that word of mouth to kind of vouch for positive experiences with lawyers who can be practical, but also, very responsive and thorough, really can't be understated or overstated rather, how valuable that is. I also think, just like Daina said, if we've got relationships with existing firms and we need somebody in a particular jurisdiction that we might not know someone, then we may take a little bit more of a leap if we've got at least some connection to working with somebody in an unknown circumstance. But we try and minimize that as much as possible. So that's sort of my feedback on that.
Do the directories influence you at all? Chambers or Best Lawyers, or any of these that are?
It's a question. I would say, generally speaking, directories do not. I do think of Chambers slightly differently, in part because I have had my clients, rather my outside counsel for whom I'm their client, they've asked me to participate in conversations with chambers. And so I myself have seen firsthand the vetting that they do and the questions that they ask. So I do think of them differently because of that line of sight to that process, but it's not going to be the driver of my decision. When I see it, it is nice to see it because it kind of adds additional confidence. I did, and I think I shared this in our prep when we were getting ready for this, I did recently have a board member that asked me about outside counsel that was engaged on a higher visibility matter that we were providing a legal update on. And when they asked about the choice of the firm, I was able to note that they are band 1 in chambers, and I wouldn't typically do that, but it was a helpful point to be able to make in that specific context.
God forbid you hire a lawyer your board hasn't heard of and the litigation goes south, and that's not a fun thing.
It's kind of a reality, right? It's a reality of those kinds of
How
cases.
much of a flyer are you willing to take, on a firm you really don't know? Dana, anything to add before we kick into our next topic area, which we've kind of talked about, and that's using AI. Anything to add as to how you identify outside counsel?
No, we're right in line with what Nicole said.
Okay. Uri, anything you want to add before we jump to generative AI? We've kind of talked about this a little bit, and we want to make sure we hold some time to share some of the survey results we generated in New York. And I've asked Uri to kind of go through that with us toward the end because people love this data.
Let's go to our poll question, John.
Okay, which is the engagement letters. Do you have language in there regarding the use of AI in your engagement letters? And I kept this really, really simple. Yes, across the board, all engagement letters, hit or miss, depending on the lawyer, the practice area, or no, we really don't. And then I'll ask our panel, we've talked a little bit, if they expect to see this language in there. And are you insisting on it as you review your contracts with outside counsel? Here are the votes coming in, folks. Vote early, vote often. Are you including language in your engagement letters about the use of artificial intelligence? Nicole, what say you about language in the engagement letter? Are you looking for it? Here's what our audience has to say, by the way.
I'm curious. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. So unlike Dana's experience, I haven't seen it referenced. I'm not looking for it. Yeah, but this is making me think that maybe I should have a kind of template paragraph to either add in, if not in the engagement letter. We typically incorporate our outside counsel guidelines. So I'm thinking that that might be the place to build it in so it fits with our other criteria. And it's also some of our engagement letters probably go back a ways in time. And so it might be worth refreshing what the parameters are so that it includes this in scope, just given the exponential nature in which this is moving forward in the industry.
This
but
is all new.
Looking. It is.
And if you have policy, you got to refresh it. If it's more than 6 months old, it's probably out of date. It's happening so fast.
That's right.
What are you seeing, Dana, in terms of the engagement letters coming across your desk?
Yeah, again, we did just have that engagement letter that had this very basic provision, which I was glad to see something, as I mentioned, but it was not robust and it was not well thought out, I think, from a client perspective. And I think that I'm not surprised that 50% said no. And I think that it's something that if you want to be, you want to look cutting edge and thoughtful to your clients, especially existing clients, it's great opportunity to do that.
But you don't want boilerplate, generic boilerplate. You want something that's a little more tailored to.
I mean, generic boilerplate's fine if it's not just we're going to use it. You okay with that? I mean, it needs a little bit more guardrails around it, you know?
Okay.
So generic boilerplate saying things like, we won't use your data for training our models. We will, you know, we won't have any confidential material or proprietary information put into our systems unless you've given consent. Those kinds of things. I mean, that boilerplate would be great.
Uri, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there.
Yeah, I heard from one managing partner recently who said that he thinks people are sheepish to talk about it with you, Daina and Nicole, because they think, what comes next after we start talking about AI? How are you going to cut our bill? That's what these managing partners, I think, are afraid of. They're afraid of what comes next. Does that mean if I'm talking with you about AI, is your next question, oh, well, then that's wonderful, Mr. Law Firm, because now I know my bill is going down, right? And I think, if nothing else, we've heard from both of you today, that's not where your head is at all. Your head is, let's do this better, smarter, safer.
We're
yes,
a
although I won't
partnership
say it's
with our outside.
Well, let me just say, it's not where our head is at all. I mean, we definitely want some cost.
It's not your
savings.
primary focus. It's not your primary focus. Is that fair?
I would say it's not. Well, listen, if it's the prime, it might be the primary focus with all of these caveats, right? Because nobody is willing to say, I'll save money and throw out compliance, confidentiality, and other things like that. I mean, so listen, the idea of saying, I don't want that question asked is the equivalent of putting your head in the sand and letting the world pass you by. So that seems really self-destructive. Get in front of it and have a great narrative about how you're going to save us money in a way that serves all of our needs without putting us at risk.
Yeah, that's right. And I would echo, it's a partnership. It genuinely is a partnership. We don't want to treat our law firms unfairly. And we also don't want our law firms to sort of take advantage of a situation where they reduce costs using a tool and then increase their margin without partnering with us so that we can see the benefits of those cost savings. We understand our law firms need to be paid. Hopefully our law firms understand we need to manage budgets, and there's motivation and scrutiny on both sides. So I think feeling like it's a genuine relationship, it's not simply transactional, and we're having a conversation about what is the priority and benefit, that should be plural, priorities and benefits to all of us, is really the way to approach it.
So often I hear, managing partners, discounted hourly rates. At the end of the day, that's what in-house counsel wants, discounted hourly rates. Those aren't alternative fees. But I agree with you. It's a partnership. It's a win-win, the relationship between the in-house lawyer and the outside counsel. It's not adversarial. And I think if we approach it in the spirit of partnership and let's learn together, how we can deliver better results more cost effectively, more efficiently. We got an even 50-50 firms here on this question in terms of pricing models. There is a hesitancy to desert that billable hour. A lot of folks have built their compensation systems around it, and these are interesting questions to have. Uri, I'm going to ask you, thank you, Daina, thank you, Nicole. This is data we collected at Uri's programs in New York. We had a relatively small group in New Jersey and thought that the live polling might be a little overkill, but in New York, we had about 55 managing partners. We covered some of these questions already, but we thought you all, our audience, might have an interest in how mid-sized firms in New York, which I think we tend to turn to as the leaders in adapting change in the legal market. And so, Uri, why don't you sail us through this as we move toward our end?
Sure. So these were the topics we covered. John, let's move to the slides. So we asked, are you proactive? Same kind of question. Are you proactively talking with your counsel really about their AI usage? Let's go to the next slide, John.
Well, look at first our word cloud. We had the panel of general counsel before coffee. And we talked for an hour, 15 minutes. Then we excused the general counsel and asked the managing partners, half of whom sat there in total disbelief. One word to describe your reaction to what our panel of general counsel had to say. And we got everything from old to wow to sexy to unexpected. Quite a variance in how people are reacting to this. I thought that was funny. Uri, let me jump you back on track here on these questions.
Same question we ask firms: are you talking with your clients about their AI usage on their matters? And you see, they say that 40%, which is about what we've seen here today, are talking, but that means, as we said earlier, 60% nearly are not really talking about it. Good tip for our firms here today. Getting a little head learning about here. We asked the people in the room, we asked managing partners, what's your biggest concern with the use of AI in your firm? And I think the risk of inaccurate AI outputs, of course, we talked about that earlier. That happens every day. But the number one here was impact on attorney training. If they're using AI, they're not going to figure out how to write a brief. So where are we going to be in 2 or 3 years when we have associates who are now senior associates who don't know how to do things? Certainly an issue.
That's the
some
first
people
time
are
we've
worrying
seen
about.
that longer term kind of reflection on the big concern. Usually it's the immediacy of
Yeah.
confidentiality and hallucinated work product. But this looks to be a little more far-sighted in terms of our staffing models, first, second, third years, paralegals. Much of this work can be done perhaps by artificial intelligence or other means. Biggest concern. Policy. Here's what we
Here we
see
had
among the New York
same
firms.
question. Policy, 60% have a written formal policy. And then our next slide, well, do you train on that policy? About half those people. So people have 60% have it. 30% are telling you how to use it or what our policy is and training you up on it. And then our last topic, which is something which is, I think, the crux of this is that are you anticipating any staffing changes in your law firms due to these new technologies? So here, clearly a majority when it comes to paralegals and legal assistants, 40% yes, I expect to employ fewer, 18% possibly, and I'm evaluating that. So you take those two numbers together, that's quite a big number, almost 60% are looking less people there. And then on associates, little bigger hesitation here, only 12% for sure, 38% I'm thinking about it.
There's opportunity there, folks. Opportunity is a knocking. I'm going to, in the interest of time, our adoption curve. Where is the legal profession on adopting to change? Tends to lag. So where's the legal profession compared to other industries, other professional services? Where is your firm when it comes to adopting technologies vis-a-vis your competitors? Not suggesting you get out here on the bleeding edge, but certainly don't be left too far behind. And here's advice. We've been pretty stable on this, Uri, since we've been doing some AI programming. Don't run from it. Learn to play with it. Be thoughtful, deliberate. Reach out to your clients. And bring this data to your partners and colleagues. If you've got lawyers at your firm that are balking on AI integration, here's some pretty compelling data that might convince them to think otherwise. We'll send you information on our AI community we're building. Nicole, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Daina, thank you so much. We thank you very much for being with us and for your insights, perspectives. Here's our contact information if you'd like to reach out to any of us, and this will all be in your follow-up material. Uri, good to see you. Daina, Nicole,
Great to see you too, John.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, Daina. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Have a good rest of the week. Thanks
Take
for
care.
joining us. Bye.
Should I drop off?